Any items you feel is important to you. He feels that this presentation that Cliff had has tremendous opportunity for action today, and he'd like to have us to spend time to work on that initiative. Is that format okay with the commissioners? So he'll cover what he's working on as a highest priority, which may not be in alignment to your presentation, but so we're aware as commissioners on what Will's working on as far as his priorities, and then he has some more general discussion items should time permit. Is that correct, Will?
That's kind of correct, because what he said is, what his presentation was on today is one of my highest priorities. It is certainly one of the things that could save county the most money. And as far as a return on investment, I cite it as one of the best returns on investment. Energy management system for county buildings, as well as energy management for transportation, I think has the fastest return on investment I can think of. So I was just looking for my project summary that I always give the mayor, return on investment, and I might not be able to find it. So.
Well, while you're working on that, one of the things I indicated to Will, based on the last commissioner's report, I don't want to lose what some of the action items that need to move forward and take that leverage that already has been done and move into the implementation side or to even continue. And so he's putting together what that interfaces could be, especially in the low-hanging fruit for the county. So kind of going off what you indicated, Steve. And then on the September meeting that we had, one of the things that I believe that I interpreted or got as far as clarity was in regards to when the mayor did speak to us, is he asked us to come up with 3 high priority items. Okay, so that's, I believe this has tremendous capacity to be one that we heard today. The other thing too, and again, this is relating a lot to Tommy, you and Steve giving us insight on the what the previous commission did, and thank you for getting that report sent back so that we could understand that. But he had the 3 C's and the 3 E's, I believe it was. And I apologize, I had it in my thing. But yeah, and so if we, for the mayor's edification, we address that strategy to those what are important to him, I think we'll have higher capacity for his endorsement in working with the commission. In other words, there's more momentum, right, to move it faster. And again, it's from a perspective, but when you align, thank you. So again, the 3 E's, education, experience, and expertise, kind of goes into what you mentioned, Tommy. And then from the perspective of compassion, commitment, and courageous. So stretching, as you indicated, Steve, getting it done, moving past some of the barriers or precepts that we may or may not have. And so I believe that this gives us great guidance in how we would address that, and then incorporating, it into the strategy. Will, you ready?
Yeah, I am.
Okay.
And was.
I apologize.
And still am. But thank you, David. I think it is important to capture what Ryan said today and what Kelvin's doing, which is pretty much the leaders in the state in fleet management. So I don't want to lose sight of that. It is on the list. I usually give the mayor a list of top 10 projects with return on investment. You can see the energy and fleet management one right here. My investment, I was thinking it would be like a 200 grand investment for perpetuity, but maybe it's a rolling whatever, 200K. But I see the return of investment like really quick. If I look at the some of the buildings we have in the energy bills, they're $20,000, $30,000, $40,000 a month. So they need to be wrapped up into one area, like Tommy always says, a display for the public and what we're doing about it. And where those savings go, as I keep talking to you guys about revolving funds, it's nice to have this mechanism where you can continue to do projects, because energy is one of these places where you could save money and can, continue to do good projects with those savings. That's how I try to think. Now, Go ahead.
I think, Will, you said something important. I don't know if the balance of the commissioners understand the revolving fund. One of the challenge in government is when you slice it off the operating savings, you lost that coming back the following year. So if you don't take that opportunity of that cost avoidance savings and rolling it into another program or what have you. And this is one of the things I believe in your report, Steve, you brought up, there's no capacity to leverage some of the things we do. So this revolving fund that he's talking about is key. So for example, let's say we get $200,000 in savings, and it went to the point you asked about that investment moving forward. Well, the sad reality is, just because we may have gotten this area fixed, we may need investment in other areas, but where are the funds to be able to take that, right? So this concept that Will is bringing up is a strong concept that we need to really articulate. It's to some degree very similar from my perspective in the 2%, the 1-in-1 in regards to real property tax allocation. But this is totally different in regards to where the funds could potentially come from. So hold on to that, because we really need to understand that that might be an opportunity. Well,
Yeah,
it is an opportunity.
It is an opportunity, and we did have the previous Energy Advisory Commission sit before Finance, and it is something that's actually going on, which Hawaii Energy is really a good model. I'm not saying they're what we want or what's optimum for the state, but if you think about it, they are the revolving fund. They're taking 2% off every energy bill and then giving back people 70% of that as a coupon to go and do some energy efficiency things. If you just got that money back, I'm just going to go to the way broadband edge. If you just got that 2% back on county's $30 million bill, my God, you'd already have the revolving fund. So I'll leave that one alone. That's a high-level conversation that belongs in the dockets. I'll just give you guys a little bit of information on dockets. If I spend 25% of my time, and you guys probably know what my salary is, and I can save the island $16 million, or stop a bad project, or encourage a good one, that's super leverage. So I just want to tell you, PUC dockets don't ever really hit anybody's mind, but if you spend a quarter of my time, which is my salary that you guys pay, and I'm able to do millions of dollars worth of savings, it's one of those things. So I'll move off this, I'll send this to David, and then we'll talk about it next time, and I'll get right into the presentation. Of course, I've already given this to Ryan, which is our NREL report on our fleet. You can also have a copy of that to see where we could have the easy, low-hanging fruit efficiencies.
That's the West Hawaii Civic Center one?
It is.
Okay.
It is. So I'm just going to touch on what we like to concentrate on, and always energy efficiency first. This is, in a perfect world, this building would be made energy efficient. Our lights would be off. We don't need those lights right now. Maybe we do, but I don't think so. The lights should be off at night. The building should have good cooling systems. Everything should be energy efficient. Lamps around the island should be energy efficient. Then you do your on-site renewables like the West Hawaii Civic Center PV and battery on-site, no transmission losses, which could be 8 to 10 to 12% in transmitting energy. Transportation projects is where we're at right now. We're just starting. So we've hired Kelvin as a free consultant to help us in the Energy Advisory Commission, and it's already working, right? And then working closer with HELCO to find, the right nexus of where county water department, county civil defense, all those things work together. Our island lends itself to energy demonstration sites, like Steve Bowles has done some things that aren't done anywhere else in the world. We have these things, let's talk about them and connect the dots. It's kind of David Deleuze's matrix idea of putting a matrix on paper of what all the good things we're doing and how we can do it better or leverage those things that already happen. At the end of the day, it's all about economics, education, and being as efficient as we can with the energy we use. Not if we have cheap renewable energy, it's actually like the Industrial Revolution. Maybe we should be using more. So when people talk about let's save energy, I think that the reason Hawaii is the leader in energy efficiency is the energy costs so much. If you get the cost down, it's kind of like, you know, discovering coal and using coal instead of horses. You know, you can have a lot of good economic development with cheaper energy. This is what we've done in the past fiscal year. We dropped the Green Government Action Plan. It has a lot of things that are heavy duty, especially on the matrix pages for each department. It's a heavy duty document. If you haven't read it, it's really where, you know, county rubber meets the road and what we're supposed to be doing. So I tried to concentrate last fiscal on getting the energy program where it should be. That kind of just meant working harder and smarter because we're not hiring any staff. And no cost initiatives like third-party power purchase agreements that have a return on investment with the first kilowatt hour. Efficiency retrofits, we've been a little slower than I'd like with doing our variable speed drive pool pumps and, you know, more LED lights, but we're getting there. We started our electric vehicle fleet and we started getting heavy in the PUC dockets because this really is the time where the utility and the consumer are changing the most in the history of the electric utility and consumer. Next fiscal, which is this one, is the PV battery EV, all in one place, which you see at the West Hawaii Civic Center. Islanding systems, which are kind of like microgrids. Demand response programs, which basically use energy when it's the cheapest. So at night when the wind's blowing and Helco can't take that energy, could we match that up with a pumping load somewhere on the island of Hawaii system for a cheaper price? Biodiesel, Kelvin talks a lot about biodiesel and it's the world-class biodiesel. You know, why are we using more of that at county? That's a decision we're going to have to make soon. More EVs and chargers. We're going to bid spec in chargers for the Apuni Center, the Hilo Center, and possibly replace the chargers here. But we got to pick the right chargers. You know, the better placed ones that we got as a free grant, a couple have failed, and we don't want a lot of failures. This is a technology that's nascent, meaning it's going to go through its fits and starts. So I'll rely on Kelvin to help me with that. DPW is putting out a bid spec probably in the next month to do the Apuni Center, Hilo County building, and this building. Waste to energy is being discussed in the paper. You know that that's a situation between County Council and the administration. Hydrogen buses, we may see those show up on the island, and that would be a good strategic thing for us to do. Strategic long-term, we are the leaders across the state of Hawaii at 49% year-to-date. Thank you, Helco, with renewable energy. So the mayor's goal of 50% by 2015 is probably already here. You know, if you consider county has its own PVs, we're probably running at about 50% right now with Helco's help. Curtailed renewable energy to cost-effective storage, that's always being looked at, whether it's going to be batteries, hydrogen, whatever. We have enough power, choke power as they say, to find a storage mechanism that's efficient, whether it's hydrogen, batteries, pumped storage, etc. NELHA is a big key to our future. You know, we're talking right now about the OTEC project that's coming, the 1 megawatt. It's going to be totally research and development, but a 1 megawatt OTEC, plus the announcement by Mackay that they're going to put up a 100 kilowatt OTEC there, makes NELHA what it started out to be in 1973 with Governor Burns and John Craven. It is the OTEC capital of the world. And our sister city, Kumajima, which has a 50 kilowatt OTEC machine currently running, is a partner in this and possibly could be the winner of that 1 megawatt OTEC project. Waste to energy and wastewater treatment to energy. There are some projects going on the island where they are going to have an ag model that uses waste from ag to produce energy. Again, hydrogen buses and vehicles. Strategically, this island might be the best fit, just like Iceland was before they crashed their economy, Wall Street style. Okay. This is too small to read, but it's what I've been working on. I can send you copies so you know what we've been up to. Lots of dockets. Fleet optimization is kind of where we're at. We started with NREL. We're going to continue with Kelvin. We've A lot of procedures improvements, like power purchase agreements, were done in my office. Good, project evaluation for return on investment was done in my office. And writing a master RFP for PV and storage and EV chargers across the county will happen either this fiscal or early next fiscal. That will be conglomerating all our big energy users into one kiosk so the public can see it and what we're doing about it, just as Tommy has been telling me for 3 years. Okay. You can read about all the PUC proceedings we're in. We were significant in the reliability standards working group. We were the chair of the demand response. We dropped a white paper in that which talks about demand response. Again, if you can find your largest, most flexible loads on the island grid, which is water pumping, and you can do it at a time when Helco needs someone to take power, you can maybe get cheap energy to those pumping systems. Geothermal, obviously the RFP and the bids are in, and there's a decoupling investigation going on currently, as well as there's a decision to be rendered on AKP2 biofuels. Integrated resource planning, we don't know what's going to happen with that, but it's in the PUC stand at this time. Again, we like energy efficiency first. Our renewable energy, if you're sick, you're sick. Renewable energy portfolio, 50% cost-effective renewable energy. That's what we say, cost-effective. If you can get PV at 20 cents and you can get storage, add storage to that, and it's 30 cents a kilowatt hour, why not? Building.
Well, I apologize.
Yeah.
But the initiative on civil defense ready systems, is the commissioners up to speed on what that initiative entails?
No, but I think it would be just a great,
That's
if
fine.
we brought
So we'll
Daryl,
cover it. Okay.
if we brought someone from civil defense, I think that would be a great meeting.
That's fine.
Yeah. Well, just to give you some background, Harry Kim started, putting brand new diesel generators at the water department. And maybe that was because of Tommy. Maybe it was because of someone who put it in his ear. But, he was ready to have backup power in case, a hurricane and Nikki happened and we needed water. So those are at the site. Now, are they connected? No. Could they be connected? Absolutely. But we don't want to wait for a civil defense situation. We want to be ahead of them. So that's why I put it in.
And by the way, the reason I wanted that initiative, in regards to what you guys brought up in regards to public acceptance, one of the most comprehensive public acceptance is public safety. So, the challenge with public safety is telecommunications a lot of times. So when we go to this transportation issue, please keep in the back of your head how it could benefit civil defense in that regard. Understanding where our equipment is and so forth and so on, and mobilization. So again, we are essentially a country within ourselves. I mean, when something happens, we got to rely on us, and that's about it. But anyway, so I just want to keep that in your mind.
Yeah, and one thing we're communicating with the mayor is when you're at 50% renewable energy, you got to get a little bit smarter. Not every project is as good as it sounds. Renewable energy is this term like sustainability that what does it mean? Is this project really renewable? For instance, if you produce biofuels, you're going to have to use hydrogen to add the hydrogen. You're going to have to ship it in. What is the total holistic price of that renewable generation? Is LNG cheaper than that renewable energy project? So I want, and I've told the mayor this, we need to hit a fidelity in renewable energy that's different than any other island. We're already blown past the state's goal of 40% by 2030. We're at 49%. Each project should get more rigor. And it's not easy. It's a tough equation, so you got to put economic rigor, technical rigor, and see where it fits with what exists on the grid. It's a multivariable equation. Okay, you're here. We did the best we could here. We can do better. We got the lithium-ion battery as part of a DOE grant. the 5 electric vehicles we bought. We've already paid back the electric vehicles with the amount of money we've saved with the PV and the battery and charging those and not using gas. So the whole system paid off in like easily less than 2 years. So this is an example of a system, you know, with the water tank you see above and the fact that we use it for civil defense. You could really microgrid this. Like, you know, with $1 million and some good sophisticated computer stuff, you could create an islanding system. But I really like, you know, the fact that we've done all these things and we could do a little bit more. You know, Alamila's coming, 5 turbines just like at the Javi Renewable Energy Farm. We already got the guy on site with the same Vesta turbines. We're really pleased about this project, which I think is the best power purchase agreement in the state, if not the United States, because we're only paying for the kilowatt hours we're going to use. It's a little unusual. Usually you have to take them all. We're only going to pay for what we use, which is kind of unusual. You know about Big Island biodiesel. Kelvin, you know, brings in samples of biodiesel that look a little older than what they're, you know, what they're showing. Bob King brings it in and it looks like clear liquid, right?
I've got some of those.
You got some?
Yeah.
Yeah. It's kind of got a nice smell too, right? Yeah.
French fries.
French fries. Who doesn't like that? But this kind of thing is a world. This plant is best in the world type class for biodiesel. So that's on our island as well, and it goes back to David's idea of matricing everything. Nelha. I'm on the Nelha board. There's so much going on there. It'd be hard to like go in depth, but with the OTEC going at the 55-inch pump station and some compressed air storage can be planned at the 2,000-foot depth. PV systems already there. Possible seawater air conditioning to the airport, and a microgrid, you know, series of microgrids there as well. That's about it. Just wanted to give you an overview and getting back to what we talked about today, the transportation initiatives just really, you know, per the mayor, if he wants 3 things, I gotta say that that's gotta be one of them because that's just such a win, easy win. Okay, I'm done.
Questions, comments, to go?
One general comment, Will. Never use the word cheap, ever.
Ever use the word cheap?
Because perception is reality, and if you're talking about the word cheap, people use cheap things. Okay, so never use the word cheap. You know, I think you use another word elsewhere, but it's really a least cost or least contract price that should be used, so that as we train and educate others, we're talking about something that is fixed to a contract, number one, and number two, there are other costs of that people may not understand. You know, during our IRP, we talk about externalities, whether it's societal or environmental. So those kinds of costs are to be considered in everything going forward if we're talking about a sustainable future. So just a word of caution. You know, we don't want to get into a situation where people start using the word cheap. And so when we deliver it at a price that is not cheap to them, then we have a compounding the problem, and we're the cause really, by perpetuating the use of insufficient information or wrong language or wrong signals that we're giving out. And the other, you know, you're doing a great job, and you need to promote it as well. And it's not on you; it's everybody else involved. You know, it's the county's projects, the county's initiatives. More people need to understand what's being done and the work effort involved, of course. You know, Steve was in that position many years ago. We talked about islanding a lot during the 90s when we were doing IRP. Helco has 4 or 5 1 megawatt units scattered throughout the system that can island if necessary. You know, the Department of Water Supply, again through Harry Kim, was able to install several very important backup diesel generators at key locations, but you know, expert is sitting in the room here, what we can do,
Mhm.
you know. And Lalamino, a good pump requires clean energy.
Mhm.
And clean energy means that it be delivered at a certain voltage, certain amperage, and very clean. Otherwise, you know, you run into continuous maintenance problems. And that I learned from Steve here.
Yes, and that's why he's here. So thank you, Tony.
Just to echo what Tom said, advice from the wise, that was good, I like that.
Okay.
But, yeah, excellent job, I guess.
Thank you.
Can turn a direction to your presentation, I think, gives us a better focus. But also going back to the action plan, yeah, it's important for all of us to digest and absorb all the hard work and effort that was put into this. But yeah, I think that was very good.
Thank you.
I have a couple of questions. What percentage of the available county facilities that could support PV are currently using PV, would you say?
We had that conversation at county council, and it is on video. And Warren Lee was requested and showed up to that meeting. So we did put forth which facilities have that. I have that. It's not at my fingertips. But the discussion was had, what's the right word to put it? I guess it's kind of a promise was made that we would pursue this. And I think the words that I used was, as long as I know that I'm not, I guess my caveat was this, as long as I know that I'm monitoring the decoupling situation where county's not passing on higher costs to low-income, fixed-income people by putting up PV. And this is my own personal view that I gave council, and I told them as such, that I was more comfortable pursuing a master RFP. I didn't, in the previous, without discussing, you know, the fact that PV-NEM could drive higher costs to low-income people, I was uncomfortable that might happen if I did a master RFP. But personally, now I'm very comfortable doing it.
Just to go back to that discussion that you just mentioned and brought up, what is it that has changed your mind about the effect on the poor of increasing participation with the PV?
Well, I think those issues have been brought up so much that there's new programs such as on-bill financing and other things that are being pursued, as well as there's a re-examination, investigation into the decoupling mechanism, which does push those costs onto lower income that I'm currently involved in. So what's changed my mind is I have a stake in this discussion, and the discussion has been put forth to the PUC over the last 2 years. So I'm comfortable that they understand it, the utility understands it. They actually were the ones who brought it up to me. Jose Dizon was the first one who said, you know, PV-NEMs actually are raising the prices on the poor. So that was like 3 years ago, and then I started investigating it. So,
Well, to clarify, it's not just the poor, it's the great percentage of the population that does not have the opportunity to do PV on their own.
that's better said.
And that, you know, involves lots of different kinds of customers, including people who live in condos and apartments and people renting and on and on. So
Yeah.
there's a small, relatively small segment of the population that can take advantage of it, of PV. Everyone else gets subjected to higher rates as a result. And that is just the fact. It's just the way it works.
That's right.
Somebody has to pay all fixed costs.
It's part of the externalities.
Yes.
And Steve, you're correct. And one of the things that I indicated to Will that concerns me is there's no alternative model to figure out how to either stem it or have unburdened financial flip-flop. You know what I mean? I mean, it's right now there's inequity. I don't believe it was intended to be that way. It's just a consequence of some of the things and policies that have come about. But that being said, There are some models that I know that he's looking into, and one of the areas where, with your expertise, we could investigate. And I personally think, if we understand the utilities model, and how do we integrate it in some of the things we need, and we partner, we got maybe more capacity to do it. As an example, I believe, and I did share that with Will, after Hurricane Sandy, the Northeast, Edison?
Consolidated.
Yeah. Their biggest challenge was getting the grid back up. And so one of the things they're looking at is what I call mini PV systems as part of the utility financing it on households. So they had capacity as backup reserve if the utility was down. So, you know, I mean, does that have capacity here? I don't know, but I think the concept is that, like you indicated, we gotta really look outside the box, and then we gotta look at stageable. What can we do now that sets the foundation to move it forward to maybe more aggressive programs later on? But the sad reality, we cannot help our community today. There may not be much of one to worry about later. So the balance is key in this concept as far as where we go. But you're correct, and that's been my biggest concern to Will with this current inequity. It's not a simple solution, but I do know one thing. We need the utility at the table because they're part of the solution. You know, I mean, in regards to how to help us with this solution.
One of the ideas that came up during the last commission and had been even mentioned to the mayor, I personally mentioned it to him, and has been worked on around the country to address this inequity issue is what they call community solar. And that's installing solar farms or large solar systems in places where it makes sense for the utility. It's not going to, provide problems to the grid because of congestion or whatever. But at the same time, it allows people who don't have the opportunity to put it on their own house to buy in and purchase a share of the energy coming from that system at the associated costs of PV versus the utility. And obviously, if you're sending energy over the utilities lines, you pay for that part of the service as well, so that the utility remains whole. But, it does open up the opportunity for a lot greater percentage of the population to actually participate. And I think that's an avenue we ought to explore a little bit further with this commission.
Yeah, and I think the thing that I would want on that is what bucket? What bucket is that? Because it is true, this is what the mayor says to me, give me 3 things and do them. So I got to do 3 things. So what are those 3 things?
Hold your thought, because that comes kind of like in establishing of working committees, because I believe that's, well, hold that thought, don't lose that thought. Okay, are there any further questions to Will?
Yeah, one follow-up that I missed, and it's an important one. It regarding the concept of wheeling. Okay, it's a very important subject matter that requires a lot more dialogue and discussion before talking about the benefits of it, because there are substantial negative effects, including who gains the benefit and who does not.
Yeah.
Okay, because once you get down the discussion path on wheeling, it's hard to back away from that, because it's like the foot in the door. More and more people want to gain the benefit of wheeling, whether it's a certain community, a certain group, a certain area, government, because we've been broached before, where government would want the first benefit, and then who else after that? Non-profits would want benefits, then large consumers would want benefits, then all the inequities start building up, and it leads to more misinformation rather than establishing a real dialogue. so be careful.
Yeah, and my comment to that would be, and this is why David's job is so important, and any chair's job is so important, is there may be distortions in the market that exist currently, whether it's PV&M or someone's getting a free ride or someone's using more ancillary services than someone else and they're not paying for it, other people are supporting it. There's already distortions there now. So if we go to an advanced topic like wheeling, which involves a lot of technical and ancillary services, and wheeling from a wind farm up to Kona just is a lot more complicated than people think. David's job is going to be, what bucket does that go in, and can we even handle that if we're going to actually have something to show for our time? You guys didn't drive all the way over here to eat Doritos and you know, you guys are important people that, you know, you got things to do. So the point is, David's going to have to figure out where to steer that big topic.
So, Will, a couple of things. I think when you look at 49% of renewables for our island, we need to promote that. We got to get that message out to everyone, because I think the general population, general public, they don't know. And mayor, county should be very proud of that, and just showcase that. But also, if you took out geothermal, what is that percentage?
20% less?
Oh my God, we were just talking about this morning.
27%,
Well, last year was 20, a little below 23, it was 22 point,
Yeah.
whatever.
but you got eight more coming online, right?
It
Six.
included the 8 for
Included
most
8.
of the year, yeah, so.
So the 49% includes all the individual PV systems that everyone put on their homes.
Yeah.
Is that right?
Yeah, right.
And the solar water.
And pay for themselves.
Right, the accounting changes, and I believe it's coming soon, so if the place that they put the percentage renewable they are is on the docket system, and I'll get you the specific docket, but it's a report. I have the current one. And it does include some things that are gonna go away, like customer-sided gen and solar water heaters. So they will lose that, so the accounting will change. And of course, all that relates to the RPS standard, which was 15% for the entire state, which they're gonna hit by 2015, so that's no longer a worry. And the state wants to hit 40% by 2030, which our island, and I keep telling the PUC, we've already blown past that. So that is, you know, do people know that? No. And to Tommy's point, have I broadcasted that or educated people on that? No. And then back to Steve's point, I really, and this may be an excuse, but I don't have that much time after I'm working on the things that I put up on the board.
Well,
I mean, education is a whole series, and I guess my question for Ryan and Kelvin would be, you know, what's your recommendation as far as me having, DPW having a transportation guru? You know, because that's like you said, there's two people that we don't have that would be needed for that.
So Steve and Tommy and Marvin know that, because that's going to be a part of the discussion. We're going to prioritize Ryan's first one. But I want to follow up with Steve's question to you. Do we have a baseline in regards to county facilities, or on track on your question? And I think that's what you were alluding to, Steve.
I was just wondering percentage-wise,
Yeah,
roughly,
as far as
what are the
facilities,
opportunities that
yeah.
are out there that remain for PV? And you had mentioned Warren had presented some numbers or something. at the
Yeah, it's on
council.
the video, and the county council presentation was this year, and just let's.
Do you have a rough idea, like ballpark, like what percentage?
Well, I know, we're roughly the same size as the county of Maui, and they used our RFP to do a master. So I can tell you, they put on 10 megawatts 2 years ago, and they're putting another 10 on. So my guess is we could probably do anywhere from 10 to 20 megs.
Addition to what we currently have.
I'm gonna say that I wouldn't do it like Maui. I would put on 10 very strategically located projects that could possibly be connected to chargers or storage. I would not just throw PV up and put it on the darker side of the island. I would find the right locations and I would make sure that I'm not increasing rates. You know, because PV&M is the best contract you can get for savings. So I would be very strategic about where I put that. And we do have other opportunities instead of PV in other areas, whether it's, you know, wastewater treatment to gas or so I wouldn't just go PV everywhere. That's kind of what the council was telling me. I would be much more strategic, and I think I would have a lower megawatt than County Mountain.
So we're gonna go back, because let me explain to you, one of the challenges I think we have, is we need to develop a formula that takes the impact of the issues you brought up, Tommy, the intangibles, okay? And there is a way, based on our social priorities for our community, to plug in some of that and tangibly address at least some, what I call a variable, okay? So we can move it, and what are the costs or the benefit that it could create within that specific opportunities. So for example, if the county went all PV and they couldn't get an NEM or what have you, what would be the potential costs on decoupling to the balance of the community? Okay, so again, you guys are bringing up some really great stuff, but we gotta figure out as a commission, how can we make it easier for the community and also our policymakers to understand what the consequences of some of these decisions are, or from the flip side, the opportunities that exist that we need to pursue a lot harder. Okay, and I know we've got the brain talent in here to figure it out, we just gotta flush it out. Okay, so, but again, he, on the last meeting, Will was asked to do that matrix. It's gonna be a work in process. He's working on it, and if there's any opportunity that as individual commissioners, you'd like to address it with him, please give him a call, because what he's working for is establishing where is the energy and drive in the commission to really harvest those low-hanging fruits. And I think from the perspective of each of us, the objectives are pretty similar, believe it or not. We just may look at it from a different way, but that's gonna be the power of what we have, okay?
Yeah, and right, getting the horse before the cart. So if we're doing all this stuff and we're not capturing those energy savings, I mean, come on, for me, that's a loss.
Let me follow up quickly. If on your presentation you laid out, you know, a short-term strategy basically in terms of the kinds of areas you're involved in and what you're pursuing. How does that jive or align with the 5-year roadmap that was produced under contract to the county by the Kohala Center?
I guess the best way to say it is I'm working on 5 out of the 10 that
5 out of the 10.
that were their recommendations. So if you want to say alignment, I think it's, I mean, the 5, I can list them. I mean, there's a master RFP, higher involvement in PUC dockets, transportation initiatives, something else and something else. But yeah, I'm fully doing 5 out of the 10, but you know, did I have to be told that? No, a lot of the stuff after 3 years, 4 years in the job, I know what's important, at least I think I do.
Well, we didn't ask for the 5-year roadmap.
I know you did.
We asked for a sustainability plan.
Yeah, but there's some, okay, so let's, if you want to have a conversation on that, I can, or David can cut me off.
No.
All right, so it's important. The smart people tell me, you may disagree, smart people tell me you cannot outsource your plans. In other words,
Yeah.
it's in you know how fast the world moves today? I mean, it's moving a lot faster than it was yesterday and a lot faster than 20 years ago. Stuff is going to hit my desk when I get back to it that's going to change what I do today. I'm like, you know, La La Mila was important. I could stay on that track for 2 years. the transportation initiative is going to be really important. I can stay on that track. But there's some things that are going to hit, like PUC dockets hit out of nowhere. All of a sudden, there's a biofuels contract that I got to analyze. Okay, 50% of my time is shot for the next 2 months. Did I know that yesterday? No. So I got to tell you, a lot of stuff that goes in plans that you pay for ends up on a shelf. You know, but big moving things like Kelvin's and transportation, which is so low hanging, I can live there for 2 or 3 years and accomplish something. So I hope I answered your question.
Well, so Steve, we're actually in this next one in regards to the discussion, okay? And had a lot of conversation with Will, I did, in that there's actually 2 parallels that I see as far as that have to work in sync. One is in the public policy side. So in other words, how can we get the low-hanging fruit in government so that we get the necessary support from the public policy sector, you know, making it move as fast as we'd like. The other side is the community. Okay, how do we get them low-hanging fruit? And this is where we talked about Hawaii Energy, and actually it goes to your point, and your point on the education and awareness segment. Okay? And so the concept is we know a lot of it is perspective to some degree, right? But the reality is that most of the work is going to be done by us, but we got to figure out how we'll be able to get it done in a very productive time period. And so one of the things that I'd like, with that being said, which you moved into it, is I'd like to bring in the Energy Advisory Commission report into the new business, because I'm committed, and I told this to Will, is that it would be a shame to not take what the previous commission did, what they identified, and move it forward to the next steps. And there was a lot of great things that were done. Where I see the opportunity for us is actually moving on the implementation stages in some of these areas. Actually, you know, coming up with, okay, this is what we identified, these are some of the opportunities that we can get done right now, and this is how we figure we're gonna get them done. And you guys have outlined that a lot. And so with that being said, for example, an education. One of the concepts that we need to look at, and the only reason because I belong to the Hawaii County Economic Opportunity Council. When we look at our island, one of the most difficult parts of our island, we have, each district almost is a county within itself, literally on our island. But basically we've got 4 very distinctive demographic areas. We've got Hilo and North Hilo, and we've got pretty much Hamakua all the way to South Kohala, and then we've got Kona all the way to South Kona, probably up to I'd say, yeah. And then we've got the south side, which is essentially everything from Honolulu all the way up just before the volcano, and then we've got the Puna and that north side of Puna. Okay. So when we look from HCOC in providing services, we have such distinctive demographics in those areas in far as its disparity. Access to transportation, access to medical care, disproportionate of either low-income wagers, and not saying, and a lot of these low-income wagers are actually our elderly. Okay, and in Puna, unfortunately, it's single-family households. I mean, as far as the primary, it is the lowest per capita, the highest level of poverty in the state is in that area. And then, of course, comes Kau. That's the next one, right? So one of the challenges for our island is we have very diverse needs on our island. So how do we look strategically to establish inroads? And we want that community involvement. One of the things I'd like to present to the commission to think about, let's work with one community and identify with them in getting leadership to work with us on the priorities of understanding a lot of initiatives that are already in place. And by the way, this is where your concept and Will indicated to me this revolving fund was one of the things that you were
you asked about and understanding how we could figure out to do. Well, I believe, talking to Will, the partner there to start is Hawaii Energy, to get the ball rolling. Okay, the concept that Blue Planet did with Molokai, well, the concept, what I suggested to Will is, what if we took a community that is actually vested, that took the time and energy to understand some of these basics, and that's Ka'u. The AKP polarized that community to better understanding some of the things that are happening in that area. And so perhaps they've got the opportunity. The other thing too is they have still a strong retirement, what do you call that? Association, basically plantation, mostly elderly, but still strong community sense of what we call kumiai, but it's more of the retirees that are still intact. And so I brought this up to, what's his name? Fred Caldones, because Fred is actually the island president of the retirees. So this is Fred. You guys get the network, and you guys get facilities along with counties, so we can try and then HCOC helps to provide transportation, because that's the other avenue. You gotta get people to be able to come in to be able to participate, if you're gonna be able to get the real world. That's a concept in trying to figure something. We localize, we attempt to try to figure out if that can be a model. And from my perspective, we can figure something with traction that helps a big segment of the people that get hit the hardest by some of these things, right? High utility rates, lack of transportation access. I mean, essentially everything is energy related. I mean, we don't have fuel costs that are reasonable. We can't provide them transportation, can't get them for medical help, can't get them food. You know, it's just a ripple effect, right? So that's one concept. Now, so my thing is, I think you need one side that's moving this way and the other side moving this way, but together. But the initiatives may have different levels as far as where they're moving at. Okay, for example, this transportation initiative. We can decide to do it as a standing committee, which we do have, or as I mentioned, specifically this concept that Ryan talked about. Are we better served with creating actionable and implementable opportunities by a task force? It still comes under, we still have the standing committees, but under transportation standing, we have a task force for the specific item. Okay, so, and the same thing with public awareness, outreach, and what did we, efficiency, I think, outreach, education.
Oh, yeah, education, outreach, and community.
Community, right, and so that actually is 3. But because they're so tightly intertwined, I don't think you can separate them. I think you gotta jointly work with it to get the leverage and momentum of it together. So from my perspective, I see transportation as being one that we can address as one opportunity, and this is a suggestion from perspective. The other, of course, is this education, outreach, and community. Okay, and then taking that concept as far as do we work as a model now, as a model, because we're so diverse. The other opportunity, of course, if we establish in a geographical area, we've got opportunity to get our elected officials, primarily the representatives of those areas, both county and state, to maybe be more collectively supportive of the initiatives to assist. Whether it be resources, whether it be a heightened awareness in something that we need to readdress in public policy or whatever. I mean, if it's vested in their community, they probably will want to work with us. And then lastly, on the transportation area, we have a tremendous opportunity in the government side in mass transit. In regards to some of the things that Ryan did, because of the way mass transit is managed, it's contractual in regards to who operates the fleet, but managed by the county. So some of the issues could be fast-tracked I'm not saying we take less steps, but they could be fast-tracked because we may not have some of the bureaucratic obstacles that could potentially slow it down. We still can achieve it in the public sector, but it may take a little longer. And so my thing is when people see something happening, they jump on it.
Having an energy department and bringing people on, you say you can only handle so much, well, that limits the opportunities and the potential ultimately, because there's only one person doing this right now at the time. I guess I'm not clear when we talk about the commission working on implementation, what that really means versus making recommendations for the county to have the personnel in place that are needed to actually implement what we recommend.
Let me comment on that. I'll give you this, how I see it. I believe we should convert to a push versus a pull model. And what I mean by that, what I see as implementation, we have very specific actionable items that have community support in the areas or have agency support that we take to the administration to prove that this has high capacity, and then say, okay, administration, some of the items that we needed is quote-unquote an administrator or program manager. If there's high opportunity for it to be a big win, the models that you indicated, Steve, that shows financial opportunities, as far as the great return, funding is addressed as far as opportunities and those kinds of things. It's my opinion, it becomes difficult for the administration to say, you know what, shelve this, we can't do it. I mean, we're actually giving them a strategic business plan with all of the things that they would have asked, or at least a majority of the major things that they would have asked for if they were have to find the resources for. Essentially, what I'm hoping we can do is we do all that legwork with Will's guidance, and we can prove to them that there's necessary, we need to invest in this capacity issue. So it's kind of like we take the first step, we hopefully get what we need done, we get the capacity issue addressed, we figure a way how we might be able to get it funded, and we may have partners to the table that will assist us in being able to do that. So kind of taking like a for-profit model and trying to justify a new business plan, a new business, but understanding the complexities of government and how it works. And those of you who have been in the utility side can best appreciate that's some of the challenges you folks dealt with when you work with, and can help to navigate that possibly. And this is possibly what we got to look at. So we look at what the stone walls will be, and we try to figure to tear them down. That's why the transportation issue. When I talked to Will, I thought mass transit might be a tremendous opportunity, only because of currently how it's managed. We also have maybe the opportunity, because is Tom still in the contract?
I believe, yeah, and I believe it started not that
Tom
long
is,
ago.
it's my understanding that he was hired under contract to update their 5-year plan. And I just happened to bump to him when I was going on the main early in the month, and I tried to explain to him that there might be a tremendous opportunity and latitude. Would he be willing to be an ex officio and work with this commission? And he said yes. And so he's supposed to get in touch with you. I talked to Tiffany. Tiffany was going to try to hook him up with you. But anyway, so again, so to answer your question specifically, it goes beyond what is in here, Steve, but I figure if we don't take the first steps, it may never happen. Meaning in that regard.
Well, I guess when we get into the details regarding specific initiatives, we'll look at I'm not clear what we're talking about when we actually talk about being involved in implementation. So, but when we get to the specific details of that, when making it recommendations, obviously you can provide lots of detail and case histories and studies and all of this stuff to support your recommendation that's being made, such that a rational person would say, yeah, this makes sense, and we should invest in this, right? And we're going to get a return. And that's basically what I assumed our role as a commission was to make recommendations based on good science and good background information that we gather. I don't know how that differs from what you're saying at this point in terms of actually being more directly involved. Is there an example you can give me?
I could. Okay, so I'll give you Alex Frost and my MO. You have to go into county government and you have to bear it and sometimes numb yourself out because that's where change can occur. You have to deal with all the arrows pointing back at you sometimes and just stay the course. And that's why you got the Green Government Action Plan from mostly Alex's authorship with my help. It's bold, but someone had to do it. So if you're asking me for implementation, what role do you have? You have the role that you want to have. And it's what David said at the end. It's navigation. It's smart navigation that wins. And knowing which battle to pick. And I guess that's all I could say at this point, because it's a complicated animal.
Well, and to add what David said, is that basically is grabbing that low-hanging fruit. Okay, run with it. 'Cause
Well,
we got loose.
that's just one side of the equation. Low-hanging fruit doesn't help the poor people out there.
Nope. Not right
Okay.
now.
It actually could work in their detriment if it's reducing energy costs by the county. Meaning, again, same like with PV, the fixed costs of utility get spread out elsewhere. And it doesn't address the situation of, and this is one of the big pitfalls of the report done by the Kahala Center. They didn't want to deal with any kind of forecasting. They did not want to look at the future and what might change. Well, we all know the future is going to change. We know it's changing in lots of ways we don't even anticipate at this point. And there's lots of information that we can gather that will help guide us to make appropriate decisions to head off some of these problems that we see coming down the road. But we need to be able to at least be willing to look at the forecasting side of things and to anticipate what these changes might be. And that I see, when we talk about low-hanging fruit, we're not talking about these things. We're not talking about an awareness or an understanding of what kinds of things might actually change in even the near term that we have to adapt to and adjust to and be ready for, ultimately. And so I think that's an important role that we also have to include. And I only mention that because there seems to be a lot of focus on low-hanging fruit and cost-effective investments and ROI. Well, that doesn't help in the case of a lot of things that are actually changing that will affect people who live on this island.
So let me just stop. I would actually, and I hate using these words because they taught me better in Hawaii, but I would disagree. I am heavily involved in things that are the fabric of all those things, and the dockets are a lot of it. But what I would prefer, I've got Steve Bolts, I've got Tommy Goya, Marvin Mitt, you, Kelvin. I mean, I got, Mike and David. You guys gotta pick 3 things that we can rip. And let's just go for it. And
Well,
as
that
far as
wasn't our entire mission. If we look at what was presented to us, we have the flexibility to do more than just 3 quick turnaround, low-hanging
I don't
fruit
think they're quick,
kinds of things.
and I don't think they're low-hanging fruit.
Well,
I think they're very strategic, but I didn't.
that's what we have to decide.
It's
as a
okay to
group.
debate, but I just, like I said,
I wasn't claiming, by the way, that you don't look at forecasting. What I said was the people who produced the 5-year roadmap said they did not want to do forecasting and incorporate it into their report.
And my only debate with you now is I'm asking you not to look and focus on that, rather focus on that as if it was a bag of, a part of the meal that we could use as a resource. you know, I got the top guys that I needed. I mean, I specifically recommended you guys to the mayor, because I wanted a strong energy advisory. That's 5% of what I worry about. Let's figure out what we can do together. And I'll leave it at that.
Guys, I can, you know, one of the things that we've got to be cautious about is that because of, especially in regards to some of the things we're talking about forecasting, is that probably doesn't apply to 80% of people that live here in regards to how it could benefit them. I mean, because they have no control over it. I mean, it's great to understand how to maybe, and again, I'm saying it has to happen, because that's what can form public policy to establish, you know, the necessary capacity. So you're right, Steve, but we gotta be cautious of, are we at 30,000 feet, or we gotta get back down to sea level to address some of the things that can happen now that can have impact. It is difficult to maybe understand unless you don't have a car, you live in South Puna or in Ka'u, and you don't have access other than public transportation or social services. So for example, mass transit, significant impact, we figure a way to offset their increases or the ability to hedge it. Could we get back to not charging or 50 cents a ridership or whatever? I'm not sure. But what I'm getting at is, although that may be small, that impacts the part of the community that least has opportunity for savings. The sad thing about the $1 fare, it impacts the people that least can afford it. I mean, when you think about it. Is it nominal for those of us who are in a community that can afford it? Yeah, maybe, but if you can't get from one place to the next, how do you get the services and how do you get to work? So what I'm suggesting is, that's why I'm saying is, these things potentially may have to look at parallel courses. You still gotta do all that. Understanding is, what can we really have impact on getting some low-level wins per se, but still takes that model you're looking at, where that creates what I call baseline trending information to be actually able to put into that forecasting model. You're right. The key to it is we're actually going to have to, I think, create that baseline. Because right now maybe it's here in DPW, maybe it's here in DWS, maybe here in mass trans or whatever the case may be. The public policy side, which I think we have tremendous opportunity to move, can converge on something that is more unitary in regards to how we do it. So I totally understand what you're saying, but if we get the average Joe voter behind what we're trying to accomplish, it makes it a lot easier to persuade administration and policy makers on some of the things that you're talking about.
And I totally agree, and I think we need to enlarge our engagement with the public as much as we can in that, to accomplish that. And that's part of what we're going to try and figure out is how we do that.
I'm sorry, Steve, go ahead.
Well, I just, listening to this, I'm new to this whole arrangement, so you have to bear with me. But I keep thinking Bahala. What you're talking about is taking a model there, which has the retirees, the plantation, et cetera, the newcomers coming in. They have a dead hospital that needs rehab. They're remote from everything, they can't get the services. They don't even have a restaurant.
Yeah, no more now.
So what you might be looking at would be to have a focus on one community like that and start working on what are the elements, because these are the poorest people in the island. And you might take something like that and begin to build a model off of that. What do you build to generate that low-income support? I don't know what it is, but I worked enough out there to know what the problems are. Spent plenty of time over there, and I can understand what they're missing. You can't even get a cop out there. I've experienced all of that, so I know what it's about. I don't know if that's the right way when you pick a model like that and you begin to build a strategic plan off of that.
I don't know, and that's why that was just a suggestion, is how do you get a piece of that elephant to where you got enough of a
Needs
bite
everything.
where when you
There's
get
no
it-
question.
Yeah, when you get enough of a bite with it, you move that elephant. You know.
Suggestion?
Yes, Tommy?
Why don't we keep this on the agenda?
Yes.
And keep it up for active discussion, because I think the dialogue helps us better understand and not hastily jump into something right now, right? So
Yeah,
that
no.
we start our education model internally here to
Yes.
see what best we can do to help this segment of the community, because like Steve and I, we've gone through a number of IRP processes, we've tried a number of different things. We got social rate making thrown in our faces many, many times, day in and day out. So we have some experience in this area. We've had considerations like collection, ability to pay, educational limitations, or accessibility, trust, and confidence, and the whole bit. So maybe we can continue the dialogue and say that this is very important for us as a committee or advisory group to pursue, but not have any really concrete plans in the area until we fully understand what we're really getting into.
And you know, Tommy, I'm glad that this got broached because it accelerated to this meeting instead of pushing it off to the next meeting. So the concept was though, that once we get it on the table, we get the dialogue on the table, we start to flesh out what is our mission and what areas that we believe we have capacity or we need to learn more about to be able to integrate the next step. Now we can have that discussion in the next meeting. And so, you know, to me, that's very productive. At the same time, is that one of the things that I would like you folks to do is think about how do we get it done? Whether through a standing committee or is there value for a task force? Okay, and again, this is just for consideration because each has its merits and also have its cons. I mean, there's no perfect solution here. But at the end of the day, once we flush this out, okay, this is the objective, and this is the intended specific outcomes that we decided we want to achieve. Okay, how do we work on that stuff, what I call the meat and potatoes?
Regarding the structural question, in contrasting the task force with the standing committee, at the last commission, we formed standing committees with only 2 members. That allowed us to not have to deal with all the public notification and the sunshine laws and all of that. And so effectively, I think it's the same thing almost as a task force. I'm not sure what the task force idea is completely and how it differs from that, but I think you were mainly talking about the difference in terms of the sunshine law applicability to the 2 different structures. Is that right?
Actually, it limits to only 2, but we have such diversity as far as commissioners, it may not be leveraging the resources within the commissioners. So,
Yeah.
And now, that still can be for a standing committee. So that's a good point that you brought up, Steve. But if there's a specific area within the standing committee that could have leverage, and that's what I'm saying, so you would still, for example, there would be a transportation standing committee, and then there's priority as far as this very specific initiative, and there might be, I'm sorry.
No, real
Yes.
quick, I think we can have a committee with 4 actual commission members, as long as it's less than a quorum.
Oh, we
That's
did.
not what we were told.
No, I sent
Oh.
this out, but I don't think Dot sent, I think I sent it to you.
Yeah, I think you
It
did.
was on the Office of Information Practices website, and it's a quick review. I could make copies of it real
We'll
fast.
fill it out.
Okay.
We'll fill it out.
And you can have, as long as it's less than a quorum, and it's called what it is called under the statute is a permitted interaction group,
Okay.
or quote, PIG. But it sets out everything, you know, the scope, and not subject to sunshine law requirements.
You can have 4 members talking to each other outside of a committee meeting, outside of a commission meeting about a given subject matter.
It's less than a quorum, yes, and it is
Oh,
by
that's a
statute.
change, isn't it?
No, it's by statute, it's, And it's on the website. There's a specific, they call it a quick review.
Oh, we were told something completely different in the last
Well, you know what,
commission.
maybe it's the way you are framed about it, because it's very complicated, and this is a subcommittee, okay?
Quick interruption from the commissioners that received this prior in our whole meeting. It is different. She sent an update yesterday.
No, there's like
Three.
three different ones, but this is specific as to what you wanted to do, which they call it, again, they call it a permitted interaction groups, basically subcommittees. But it's by statute, and it's very helpful, and I'm sorry that you guys
No,
didn't
we
get it.
received this. You sent this out.
No, this one was dated
Oh.
August
The
8th,
state-
2013, and it's called Part 3. I mean, I can try and make a copy of it right now, if you want a copy of it, just
I
give
think,
me.
Or you can email.
I think it's important enough that we have it in hand.
Okay,
Because,
let me,
you know,
yeah.
there's public trust involved here.
And again, Tommy, that's the whole concept. I don't want to dissuade that. It's just that I wanted to ensure that we understand that sometimes
Yeah.
not having a leverage on this committee, it handicaps us when we gotta come back. You see, hopefully, the concept of our meetings is to agree on the initiatives and the outcomes, and then the committees actually work on that. And when they come back, hopefully it's more of a report of status, or guys, we need more guidance, or whatever the case might be. And that was the concept,
Yeah.
you know.
The caveat to this committee, or this, they call it HIG, is that you do require 3 meetings, because it's very specific about what you can, you have a committee, you present it at a next meeting, and then you do action the 3rd meeting. So there are specific requirements.
So I think the 2 is you can talk anytime for any subject for any reason.
Yes.
And then the pig is you can get less than a quorum, but it has to be assigned at a public meeting. And then
Oh, you
the
have to
other
have a
research-
notice for that?
Yeah,
Yeah.
so right now,
Oh,
that's
okay.
why you
Yeah,
have
yeah.
All
number,
right, well, it's the same.
that's why you
as
have number 8.
Yeah.
Yeah, so then the 4 can go and do other research outside
Yeah,
of
yeah.
the meetings, and then they gotta come back.
But
to
see,
report.
but to me,
Yeah.
that's still okay, because
Yeah.
we
Yeah.
need to be accountable, so I don't have a problem with that. I mean, but it's that interaction outside of that. So the three meetings, it really, I think, is an alignment to what we want to accomplish. Okay, we do our fact finding, we come, we meet, we report now as a committee,
And then the next meeting,
right, and then the 3rd is actionable. Okay, so from that perspective, you defer, or we found that this will go into another. Now, essentially what happens is we restart the process again, I believe, but we'll see what happens there. If, in other words, we table it or it goes into something else.
and then like your question about how before you used to have a transportation committee, but now the members have changed. So if you still want to do it, you gotta kind of like
Set the
dissolve the
committees.
and set a new transportation committee. So
Yeah.
that's what you were right.
We assumed everything was dissolved when the last commission
Yeah,
was
so
dissolved.
that's kind of, and that's part of that sunshine law as well. But it's, to me, it's very handy, because sometimes, you have to read it, okay, does this apply? Okay, does this apply? But, I think everybody has good intentions, but, there's just like this framework.
One other option, and this is something I did on the commission before the last one under the Mayor Kim, and we had committees as well at that point, limited participation to avoid all the notifications and all of that. But the committee that I chaired, I set up my own advisory group from the public, of experts in the public, to contribute and discuss the matters that were up for discussion in this particular initiative, or whatever it was that we were dealing with. And then, they were just an advisory group from the public, and there weren't any requirements in terms of meeting notifications and all of that with respect to sunshine law, because they participated as they were